Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. I'm TCaptainX. Today we're going to be covering the top 5 SMGs or top 5 close range guns after the Season 3 Reloaded update, because there was a ton of changes to multiple weapons in this update. So first part of the video, we're going to be discussing the different strengths and weaknesses of these guns, because just because I say it's number 1 doesn't mean it's necessarily the best for you, depending on the situation, how you play, or your skill level. And then we're going to be using our website GGs.ai, which is a website we created that uses an AI algorithm to rank all of the best loadouts in Warzone right for you guys, and it gives you a ton of different information on stats and whatnot as well. So for this, I am on the weapons page here. I have this sorted by close range, and we're going to look at SMGs, ARs, and LMGs. And actually, let me include pistols in there as well. Now you can change the algorithm. So I'm going to be using the balanced play style, which kind of looks at, you know, what most people would expect. But if you wanted to use like aggressive, this will favor things like mobility, close range time to kill, whereas like casual and tactical, they tend to favor recoil and things like that more. So our algorithm is ranking the Striker 9 as the number 1 overall, which I would agree with. Also, if I put my bias in there, it's a 10 out of 10. The BP50 is right behind at number 2 at 9.97. WSP9 Striker. The WSP Stingers, now this one I think might be getting rated a little bit too high. It does have an insane time to kill, but this is the akimbo build, so it's almost, you have to treat it like a shotgun in a sense. Ram 9 is actually ranking pretty well still. The Renetti aftermarket pistol, MCW amp kit. Then the Holger 556 amp kit is actually sneaking in as meta as well. You are going to see that the HRM 9 is now ranking only a B tier after it was heavily nerfed in this update. Now, one thing I wanted to point out really quick is a really cool feature that we're going to have coming soon, which is going to be where you can score your own build. So this is not out yet. This will be for our premium iridescent members, but you'll be able to select whatever build you want. So we can do, I don't know, the Chimera. You'd put all your attachments in, all that good stuff. It'll tell you all of the stats for it. You would select, is this a long range or a close range? How would you characterize this build? Then you can go into the firing range and you can shoot the different dummies and get your average accuracies, and that will give you your own custom recoil score for that build. You then would hit analyze, and for example, I did this Bruin a few days ago and I ranked it a 9.58, and it gives you all the different stats on this and things like that. So pretty cool feature we have coming soon that should hopefully be rolling out in the next few days. So I've already selected a few of these builds. As you're going to see, if you hit the drop down arrow, it'll give you multiple different builds to select from. So if we scroll down here and we're going to look at our time to kill chart. So the first thing you're going to see on the TTK chart is the HRM9, and the red line here is way behind everything else. And that's because the HRM9 got nerfed very hard in the Season 3 Reloaded update, and it's just not worth using anymore. After that, we've got 3 different guns that are like neck and neck for close range time to kill. You got the MCW, the WSP9, and the BP50 are all within like hundredths of a second or so. Striker 9 in blue is just slightly behind. It's only 300ths of a second slower close range time to kill, but you'll see has a very good mid-range time to kills as well. And then the Striker 45, the regular Striker in the purple line, not as good close range time to kill, but it did get a buff for its long range time to kill. So using this as like a sniper support is now an even better option, because this gun also has very low recoil. Now, one thing I want to mention is if we switch this to the expected time to kill, what this will do is this will factor in the accuracies and also things like open bolt delay, which the WSP9 in the yellow line here now drop back a bunch because it has a 50 millisecond open bolt delay, which just means when you first pull that trigger, it takes 50 milliseconds until that first bullet starts to come out. So sometimes this matters, sometimes this doesn't matter in your fights. It just kind of depends on the situation. If we switch over to the DPM chart, or damage per mag, how much damage can you put before you have to reload? You're going to see that the Striker in purple and the WSP9 in yellow are top notch. And the cool thing is the WSP9, this build I have here is only with the 40 round mag. You could put the 50 on and it would be even higher up here. So big advantage of the WSP9. Whereas guns like the MCW, although it has amazing time to kills, the MCW struggles in that damage per mag department. Striker 9 and then the BP50 are kind of in the middle though. Now there's a bunch more stats we could go through. We have the weighted expected time to kills, which is like a fancy stat that compiles all the data into one number, like what's the best TTK you can get. MCW actually does rank the highest, then BP50, Striker 9, and so on. Weighted damage output is how many downs can you can expect to get before you have to reload, which factors in things like accuracy. So you're going to see the Striker and the WSP9 are on top there, whereas everything else is kind of the same around 3. We then have expected accuracies, which is what is the expected accuracy you can get in most situations, which is basically saying how good is the recoil control on this. MCW actually ranks very high. I think we might need to investigate this a little bit. I think it might be ranking a tad too high. But next you're going to see the Striker is the next highest. Again, the Striker is just super low recoil and great for new to kind of average players. And if we continue to scroll down here, you're going to see even more stats here. We've got the builds here and just a ton of different data. Now, I'm not going to just go through every number and bore you guys to death. What I want to do is just give you a quick summarization of what gun is, like, where are the strengths and weaknesses. So the Striker 9 is probably the best all-around SMG. It does it all. It has good time to kills, low recoil, good mobility, good handling. It checks all of the boxes. It's good in everything, but not great at anything. The BP-50 is probably hands down the best mobility gun right now. It has insane movement speeds, and if you rely on movement to help win gunfights, BP-50 is great, and it also has great TTKs as well. Its only downsides really is its recoil, in that if you don't hit high damage areas, you can get a slower time to kill. Striker 45 is if you want just a low recoil, good range SMG, this is your go-to, especially if you want to pair it with a sniper. MCW AMP has probably the best all-around TTKs, but it has low damage per mag, and depending on how you build it, it can have not as good handling and mobility compared to some of the SMGs. HRM9, it ain't worth using. Put it away. It's gone. Bye-bye. And then finally, the WSP9, which I'm covering up here, is also another kind of great all-around, kind of similar to the Striker. A lot of different ways you can build the WSP9. You can build it for max mobility or for lower recoil sniper support. But one of the big things about it is it got a big buff to its sprint to fire time. So if you're an aggressive player and you're gonna just run around and sprint around, that super fast sprint to fire time now will kind of make up for that. Now, I did want to include one honorable mention that I did not mention on GGs, and that's because I literally just found out about this build and we didn't get this updated because this was like a stealth buff. So the DG58 AMP got a huge buff to its time to kill. It now has a crazy fast time to kill, and this is compared to the Striker 9 and WSP9. So you're going to see way faster than everything else. Now it's an LMG. It doesn't handle as well, and it's got some recoil. So the way I see people recommending it right now is to run it as a tac stance build. So I wanted to throw that in there as an honorable mention. I will show that build here in just a second. All right, so this is that tac stance build for the DG58 LSW LMG. So you have to run the AMP kit to make it this way faster time to kill. After that, we're basically just building it to max out the tac stance. Also throw on high grain for a little bit extra range, although you could throw on like a suppressor or a muzzle if you wanted lower recoil. No reason to run an optic, since we are going to run this as tac stance. And just to show you guys here, it is very accurate, very easy to control recoil when it is in tac stance. All right, starting with the Striker. This is not the Striker 9. This is the Striker like 45. This is going to be kind of my all-around balanced build. It's going to have good mobility, low recoil, just easy to use in general. Now, if you don't like these iron sights, I'd say either take off the high grain or take off this recoil stock for just a 1x optic of your choice. Generally on all my SMGs, I like to run the Zem compensated flash hider. It's just really good for recoil control. But if you wanted to say suppress, which I think is a very underrated thing, I think more people need to consider that, probably the sonic suppressor is my go-to. Now, if you want a crazy fun mobility build, this no stock Striker class is so much fun. It has mobility that rivals the BP-50, and it surprisingly still has not bad recoil at all, despite it having the no stock, but this is just a super fun build. Next, we've got the MCW assault rifle, but again, with that AMP conversion kit, this makes the time to kill much faster. And we only have a 40 round mag, so not the best damage per mag. After that, the goal of this is we got to get the handling kind of on par with an SMG. So the SL Razorhawk Laser Light and then the RB Rapid Strike Grip, these are going to help speed up that sprint to fire and ADS time quite a bit. This build ends up giving us a sprint to fire of 109, which is on par or just a tad slower with a lot of SMGs. Now I like to go with the Zem compensated flash hider to help with that recoil. If you want to build this as like a pure SMG, as good of handling as possible, take off the muzzle and then put on the XRK Edge, and then this build actually gives you 95 sprint to fire. So it handles pretty close to an SMG. Mobility is pretty solid, just that bad DPM. And then if you don't like the iron sights, I'd say take off the underbarrel, put on an optic is probably what I would go to instead. WSP9 I'm going to rank as the number 3 overall. This is going to be like my recommended build for most people because it's going to be kind of check all your boxes. Good range, good mobility, good recoil. 50 round mag is more than enough. Honestly, I think the 40 is probably better, but if you want to go with the 50, you're more than welcome. Just a little bit slower movement. I usually like to prefer an optic on this, so I run the MK3 reflector. Again, that XRK Edge hand stop is great because this helps so much with our mobility and handling. This is on almost all of my SMGs. Zem compensated flash hider, then the HISS short light barrel because this one helps a lot with our mobility with only a tiny penalty to our recoil. Now, if you want an insane movement build, this is one of the most fun SMGs I've ran on Rebirth Island. You want to swap the barrel and the optic for the no stock and the Marauder rear grip to help the recoil. This build is so much fun. If you don't like the irons, you could take the Marauder rear grip off for an optic. It's not bad, but it is a little bit bouncy like that. Coming in at number 2, I'm going to rank the BP50 amp. Again, this is an assault rifle, so that is another downside is that uses AR ammo, but the conversion kit is going to give you insane mobility. The best thing about this is it has that tac sprint speed of 7.7, which is pretty much the fastest you can get in the game. There's definitely a few different ways you can build this. This is my favorite setup though. High ground for the extra range. The CCG tac tape is going to help that handling so that it has faster sprint to fire times. Again, the Kimura laser is another one that helps sprint to fire times. It's going to get it all the way down to 92 milliseconds. Now this laser is visible when you aim it. So if you don't want a laser that is visible during ADS, I think the EXF Solar Flare is the next best option because it's going to give us a great sprint to fire time, not as good of ADS, but if you go in the firing range here, this is only a flashlight and you literally cannot see this flashlight. It's not visible. And then for the muzzle, this has a lot of horizontal wobble to it. So I know it seems weird, but I like running the Cassis brake on this. You could run the Zem, but the Zem only does 5% for horizontal, whereas the Cassis does 18. So I think the Cassis is better, but if you like the Zem, go for it. Nothing wrong with that. And then if for some reason you just hate the optic on this one, I'd probably say take off high grain and put on your optic. And then coming in at number 1 overall, the Striker 9. Now there are a million different ways you can run the Striker 9, but this has overall been my favorite. One thing that's very unique about this build is I run this ECS Requieter Suppressor. This is unlocked by the FJX Horus by leveling up just a few levels. Obviously you're suppressed, but it also gives you firing aim stability and faster aim down sight speed. Now this laser is visible, but it is barely visible. It's a blue laser and enemies can barely see it. If you don't like the laser, just run the Sonic. And if you want better recoil control, just go with the Zem. But again, even without the Zem, this has pretty low recoil. Again, like most of my builds, I run that XRK Edge for the better handling and mobility. Definitely want to go with a 50 round drum on this one. Now for this attachment, there's a lot of different options. You could go high grain for more range. You could go the Socken rear grip for better recoil control, but I really like this Priority Tactical stock because it's going to help our recoil control, hurts our gun kick, which doesn't really do much. This gun doesn't really have any kick to say, but a nice boost to our mobility overall. So this has been my favorite attachment personally. And then I like to run an optic on this SMG. The iron sights are not bad, but I feel like I'm just way more consistent with it. If you don't mind the iron sights, probably go with something like high grain or go with something like that Socken rear grip for even better recoil control. Now, one thing I want to mention, because people always say this, is they're always like, where the heck did you get this Quarters Classic Reflex? There was a bug where this was not showing up. I think they fixed it in this update, and the only reason I was able to use it is because I had it saved as a blueprint, but this is unlocked from the SOA Subverter. You don't have to use it. It's not anything special. It kind of looks like a Black Ops Cold War optic, so I like it. If not, I'd say like MK3 or like a NIDAR would be perfectly fine. And then before I wrap up, I'll really quick cover what tacticals, lethals, and perks I've been running. I always run smoke grenades. I know a lot of people ask me, why don't you run stims? I think smokes are just generally much more useful since stim grenades don't really give you that much of a movement speed boost anymore. I pretty much only play Rebirth Island, so throwing knives are very important, but other grenades like Semtexes, frag grenades, or even the thermal barrel grenades are very good as well. For my perk package, I always go with Double Time and Mountaineer in my first two. High Alert is usually always what I run in perk 4, especially since they kind of fixed the audio on Rebirth. I don't think Flex is as important now. Now, perk slot 3, I am running Tempered, and I get asked this every time. TCap, why don't you run Quick Fix? Iceman Isaac made a video and said it's way better. Yes, Quick Fix is phenomenal as well, but here's why I like Tempered. Quick fix is only valuable if your health gets really, really low. So let's say you get knocked down to only like all your plates are off and you only have like 10 HP left. Quick fix will then, get your health regen to go back up faster, and compared to tempered, it is a faster health regen overall. However, if you're only getting 1 or 2 of your plates knocked off and your health isn't getting down to absolutely 1 HP, then tempered is the better system, or the faster thing to regen. So it just depends on the situation. For me personally, I'm usually only, if I'm like playing well and playing efficiently, I'm only taking 1 to 2 plates off. And I'm not getting absolutely 1 HP in every gunfight. So tempered ends up being the faster health regen instead. Alrighty guys, that is going to wrap things up. I will probably have the top ARs / long range meta video up tomorrow or the day after, depending on how things goes. Again, I really encourage you guys to check out our website, GGs.ai, for yourself. Lots of cool information on there. We'll be continuing to update the site over the next few days and adding more builds. But thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest. Why am I saying that? The video is over. Goodbye.